It was a quiet afternoon when I came back home from school. I pushed open the door and stepped inside. The house smelled familiar, like memories from when I was little. But something felt different. It was quieter, but somehow warmer. My 19-year-old stepbrother, Ryan, was standing in the living room. He looked taller, more grown up than I remembered. He was tossing a soccer ball in his hands when he saw me. "Hey," he said with a small smile. "Hey," I replied, surprised at how much he had changed. Our parents had left that morning for a trip, so it was just the two of us at home. We weren't really close when we were younger. I was 3 years older than him, and we had never spent much time together. But that afternoon, something changed. While I was unpacking, Ryan knocked on my door. "Want to order pizza later?" he asked. I agreed, and soon, we were sitting on the couch, eating slices of pizza and flipping through TV channels. We started talking about old family memories, like the time we built a fort out of bedsheets and knocked over a lamp. I laughed and teased him. "You were such a troublemaker. You were so bossy," he shot back with a grin. The way we talked felt easy, like we had never been apart. Later that evening, I found Ryan washing the dishes. I stepped in beside him and grabbed a towel. "I got it," I said. "Nah, you're the guest now," he joked. We started talking about his dreams. He wanted to be an engineer and build things that could change lives. "I never knew he had such big goals." "I never realized you were so ambitious," I said. He shrugged. "Guess you were too busy to notice." His words stung a little, but not in a bad way. It made me see how much I had missed about him. The next morning, I saw Ryan outside, working on his car. His sleeves were rolled up, and his hands were covered in grease. He looked focused, determined. I watched him through the window, surprised at how much he had grown. "Are you just going to stare?" he called out when he saw me. I laughed and joined him. For the next hour, he explained how the engine worked, showing me different parts. He was so patient, teaching me things I had never paid attention to before. That evening, a storm rolled in. The power went out, so we lit candles and played cards at the kitchen table. The rain tapped against the windows, and the candlelight made the room feel safe. "I'm glad you're here," Ryan said suddenly. His voice was softer than usual. I looked at him and nodded. "Me too." For the first time in years, I felt like I truly knew him, not just as my stepbrother, but as someone who cared, who listened, who had grown into a person I admired. The next day, something felt off. Ryan was quieter than usual. He barely spoke at breakfast, just stirred his cereal in circles. In the afternoon, I found him sitting on the porch, staring at his phone. "Everything okay?" I asked. He hesitated, then shook his head. "Just some school stuff." After some pushing, he finally admitted the truth. He had missed a project deadline, and now he was at risk of losing his scholarship. "I should have handled it better," he muttered, frustration in his voice. "But now I'm stuck." "You're not stuck," I said. "You're just overwhelmed." "I can't fix it," he shot back, his hands clenched. I didn't know what to say. He wasn't just upset. He was disappointed in himself. "Maybe you can't fix everything at once," I said gently. "But you can start somewhere." That evening, I brought my laptop to the kitchen table. "What are you doing?" Ryan asked. "Helping you," I said. "If you're going to give up, at least let me try first." He didn't argue. Instead, he sat down beside me. We spent hours rewriting parts of his project, fixing mistakes, and making it better. He was smarter than he gave himself credit for. By the end, his frustration had disappeared. In its place was something else, relief. "Couldn't have done it without you," he said. "You did most of it," I reminded him. "Yeah, but you didn't let me quit." That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about how much he had changed. He wasn't the restless kid I remembered. He had grown into someone strong, hardworking, and determined. The next morning, Ryan was pacing in the kitchen. I could tell he was nervous. "You'll be fine," I said. He nodded. "I hope so." I smiled. "I know so." Later that day, Ryan got the news: his project had been accepted. The weight lifted off his shoulders, and for the first time in days, he looked truly happy. "I owe you," he said. "You don't," I replied. "You just needed someone to remind you how capable you are." That night, we sat on the couch watching one of those old action movies Dad loved. Ryan kept glancing at me, like he had something on his mind. When the credits rolled, he finally spoke. I remember when you left for college, he said quietly. I thought you'd forget about me. I looked at him, shocked. Forget about you. You were always busy, he said. Friends, classes. I figured you'd move on. That we'd drift apart. Guilt hit me like a wave. I had never thought about it like that. I had been so caught up in my own world that I never realized how much distance had grown between us. I didn't forget, I said. I guess I didn't know how to stay close. He smiled, just a little. Well, you're here now. The next morning, as I packed my bags, Ryan stood by the car. He shifted his weight, looking like he wanted to say something. You're going to be okay, I said. He nodded. You too. Then, before I could get in the car, he hugged me, quickly, almost hesitant. Don't wait so long to visit next time, he muttered. I smiled. I won't. As I drove away, I realized something important. We hadn't just reconnected. We had built something better, something stronger. No matter where life took us, I knew that bond would always be there. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe.